Do you need a chemical-free way to get rid of weeds around your garden or your house? Well, I recently purchased this propane torch from Harbor Freight. There's a lot of places that you can get one that looks just like it, and I'm sure they work about the same. But I've had it for a couple months now. I've used it a right good bit, and I've learned things, some good, some bad. So I'm going to show you some of the stuff I've burned. You may be able to see this black marking here in front of me where I burned the weeds under my electric fence. That seems to have worked really well. But I've also had some problems where I damaged things. I've damaged some plants, I damaged part of my irrigation system, and so it ain't all good and rosy. So let's go around and I'll show you the things I've done and what worked and what didn't work. Now if you look at this kind of a square right in front of me here, I burned this, and I didn't burn that over there at what I'm talking about. I started out, I burned this big square right here, and then a couple days later I came back and I burned over it again. And what I found was the second time it seems to burn better because what you've already burned has died down. Some of it's still there, but it's real dry and it burns good. And I think I did a real good job here. Now from right here over, I've only burned that one time. I need to burn that again. Now that down through there, I haven't burned at all. What I think I was learning was these weeds had gotten fairly high. There's a lot of moisture content in them, and they weren't burning very easily. So I mowed that with my lawnmower, and I'm gonna give it a few days, and after that dries good, I think it'll burn a lot better. I've tried that with just knocking some stuff down a little bit, like I did over here. A few days later, what's left burns a lot better. And so that's what I'm gonna do there. Now this was a fire ant mound, and yes, I have trouble with those little guys, just like most people. I burned that hill, and it was just full of ants, but I really put the heat to it. And so far I haven't seen any life there, but I understand that if you do something to disturb them, they'll just go somewhere else. To my knowledge, I haven't seen a new fire ant hill crop up anywhere. Maybe I killed them, maybe I didn't. If you do this and have some success or failures, leave me a comment and let me know how it worked for you. Now, as I pointed out earlier, I burned under my electric fence. Just a side note, if you're interested in an electric fence to keep deer and squirrels, rabbits, and whatever else that may wander through your yard at night out of your garden, I got a video, I'll put a link in the description to installing an electric fence. If you're in a place where you can do that, in some places you can't, but if you can, it works very well. But one of the big mistakes that I found, well, getting back to started, I burned over my electric fence, and then I came back a week or so later, maybe 2 weeks, and the grass was starting to grow again, so I burned it again, and it's looking good this time. I don't think I killed all the grass, but we're working on it. But this is my biggest mistake so far. See all these brown leaves? Let me zoom in on that a little bit. But I was burning the ground, but the heat was coming up and singeing the leaves on my blueberry plants. That really had me disappointed with myself, but it was a learning experience. So, you know, if you're burning around stuff, be careful to protect stuff up above, even where you're burning on the ground, because that heat coming up is really hot and it can singe the leaves on your plants. I had another failure right here. I was burning some weeds right in this area, and that hose right there is part of my drip irrigation, but those lines were really thin, and just within a second or so, I'd burned that hose right there in two and had a hole in it, and I had to cut it and splice it and fix it. So just be careful if you're around anything that's flammable, like those hoses for my drip irrigation. And if you're interested in a drip irrigation system, I do have a video about that. I'll put a link in the description, but I really like it. But you know, be careful when you're around things other than just grass and plants, but other things, plastic pots, drip irrigation, you know, children's toys, anything like that. I got a tarp over here that I've got some leaves on. Move the camera a little bit there. You know, even that tarp, stuff like that can't take much heat, so if you get close to it, you're going to damage it. This is the walkway into my front porch. And when I burned this, I wasn't really thinking too much about the ashes. If you burn in an area where you may be tracking ashes into your house, you may want to think about that. You may want to sweep it off or wash it down or something. But just be aware that if you're not careful, you may end up tracking a lot of ashes into your house. That brings me to the end of talking about the good and the bad that I have learned with using this propane torch for killing weeds. But in my previous video, I had a viewer that made a comment that he didn't think I had my tank operating properly because the flame wasn't as big as he thought it should be. But it was as big as I wanted. But that brings me to the question about what could cause that. So while I got this opportunity, I want to show you. Now, what I've done right now, I've opened the valve as far as it'll go. This is wide open. I'm going to hold this. So basically, this hose is going to be basically open on this end. Now, if you listen to my tank when I turn the valve on, you may or may not hear a click, but listen for it. No click that time. Let's try it again. Boy, I smell the propane though. Ah, it did it that time. You may not, I open this valve all the way. I'm gonna close this, I'm gonna close this. All right, now the tool is completely turned off and I'm gonna light it. My tank just reset. Did you hear it? Sometimes this is hard to duplicate, so I'm going to try it again. I got this all the way open. I'm holding the handle, so that this hose is basically it's open on the end. When I cut this on, you may or may not hear that little click inside. You hear that? Now if I try to light this thing is wide open. That's all the flame I can get. I have to keep lighting it because it'll go out if I let go of the trigger. Okay, that is a safety feature in the tank itself. Now listen, you may or may not have heard, but there was a little click inside the valve of the tank. That's a safety feature that if your hose gets broken while this is turned on, it will reduce the amount of propane that can come out. It doesn't stop it completely because you saw a little bit of flame, just not much. Now I'm going to close this. And anytime you turn your propane tank on, turn it on kind of slowly. Especially if your lines are completely empty, and let them fill up. Now turn this all the way open again. I'm going to open this just a little bit. I'm going to light my flame. Now if I turn this thing all the way up, quite a difference, isn't it? Gotta be careful, don't burn my car over there. All right, I'm going to turn it back off. But that's a problem that you can run into with your propane tanks. If you turn it on too fast, sometimes that interlock mechanism or that safety, whatever they want to call it in here, will reduce how much propane comes out, and it can reduce your flame to real small. You can have this same problem with a gas grill or anywhere you're using these propane tanks. That can be an issue if you turn it on too fast. To fix it, you just turn it off all the way, and you may or may not, but most likely you'll hear a little click inside the valve. After the click, turn it on real slow, let it charge the line slowly, and that won't happen. So that's my tip at the end. So that's it for the use, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess, of using this propane torch for weeds. I think one of the big advantages is, I'll leave you with my last tip, your chemical things that kill weeds, they don't kill the seeds. Most of your other products for killing weeds, they don't kill the weed seeds. This kills the weed seeds. And although it may not kill the roots, neighbor going by, it does kill the weed seeds, which reduces how many weeds can come back later. So there's pluses and minuses to everything, but I do like my propane torch. I will continue using it. So at this point, I'd just like to say I appreciate you visiting. Do it yourself with Wayne. I really would appreciate it if you would click like on my video and subscribe to my channel. And we hope you have a great gardening season. Got geese flying over now. Actually, I think those were mallards.